The hooking position this year in Supercoach isn't going to be extremely hard to decipher, but there are a few different strategies, a few different ways you can go about it, especially with the types of guns we have available and then the value guys as well. So I'm going to go through those two options. Unfortunately, there is no cheapies at this stage, but we will find out a little bit more across the preseason. We're going to do the whole hooking position at once. We're going to kick it off up top with Harry Grant and Damien Cook. So with Harry there, the 816.5k price tag is pretty high, but he does boast a nice 77 average and is very consistent over the years. He comes in with a buy in round 9, so you do get 8 quality rounds of football out of him, and you're looking to get pretty close to that 77 average. I can't see much of an improvement in him. The Storm are probably a slightly lesser team this year than previous, unless he gets in there and absolutely tries to do everything, and means he gets plenty more runs and some attacking stats from that. I'd see him being a pretty similar scorer to what he is right now. So pros for him, obviously one of a small group of those 80-minute hookers in himself, Cook, Robson, as 3 of those main top guys, which are the 3 top averages at this point. And we've got Reedy, Marnie in there as well. But with that nice 1 ppm, his average is sitting around that 77 minutes as well. So a 77 average is delightful and has plenty of attacking upside. Pretty much everything you want in a great hooker option for your starting team. The cons there obviously might be tough to own during the middle of the year with that buy in 9. He's got origin period. His second buy will be somewhere in that as well. So really just keep an eye on that, which you'll see is very much the same with Damien Cook. So you get him at slightly cheaper, at 26k cheaper, only a 2 average difference. It was a nice bounce back year from Damien last year after averaging a couple of seasons in the higher 60s. So really as consistent as you can get. You saw with him that percentage was really low in terms of, you know, how consistent he was there, which is great and very, very durable. So the 20 plus games a year for him each of the last 4 seasons is absolutely great. The buy later in the year. Cons for him, again, obviously hard to own during that middle part of the season, but there's really not too much bad we can say about those top 2 guys. Just up to you which one you think will have a slightly better season than the other, or which one you want to hold the whole way through. Potentially, you could try and do that with each of these guys. Obviously, the extra buy, they're probably going to miss 3 to 5 games across the season. So with 27 rounds there, anywhere around that 22 to 24, if they are able to play each and every game. So they're the top 2 guys, and Reece Robson is number 3. So you're looking at a nice average from him when he did get up to 80 minutes from round 11 of 72. So that's 8 up from where he is priced at right now. And you're getting him a little over 100k less than the other 2. So I can definitely see why people will be going for Robson. My main issue with him is I still see him as the 3rd best hooking option in Supercoach this year. But there's plenty of attacking upside for him. He's in a great team. He has the late buy in round 15 and probably no origin. So lots of upside for him. He'll only miss those 3 games if he's not in origin, and should be getting close to 80 minutes in a great outfit. So I can definitely see the upside in Reece. Anyway, our last gun that we can talk about is Reed Marnie. So had a pretty tough year last year, but what I have seen with him is over that last 4 years, it is slightly his worst PPM. But he really just has an outlier in 2021 of his PPM there and his ability to score points. So this 54.5 average there is pretty close to what we should expect him to get. Obviously, a buy in round 13 is pretty nice, but what happens now that he moves to the Dogs? He becomes the focal point of this team, along with Burton. Those 2 are going to be controlling things. Does Reed take on a bigger role? Does he take a lesser role? Does he stay the same? We're not exactly sure. And I suppose for a few people, they'll see that as a good thing. For others, that's a little bit unnerving, and you can be a little bit unsure as to what you're going to do with Reed heading into round 1. And really, just that PPM of just over 0.7 is not nice when you've got guys like Harry Grant, who's at a 1 PPM, very similar to that of Damien Cook, and also Robson, when he did get that 80 minutes, he's up around that high 0.8s to 0.9. So really just unsure on Reedy, and he is another 100k cheaper, but he comes with a lot more risks than I think the top 3 guys do. Move to the value guys, and we look at Aaron Clark to kick things off. A 494k, an average of 47 for him. He has a buy in round 5, which is a little bit of an issue. The pros for him, he's obviously way better in the lock role, and it looks like he will get that this year. So I'd be expecting a 55 plus average. We don't have too much to talk about in terms of the amount of games that he's played in that role, but you've seen a couple of really nice ones in the 70s and 80s, and then a mid 40s score. So anywhere around that 55 plus average, I think would be pretty fair. Gives him at least 8 to 10 points of value, and definitely a solid one that you could pair with one of the guns if you're looking at doing that. So Aaron Clark, a very interesting option, and I think he's going to do fairly solidly. As we said, the cons, just a limited opportunity so far, and does he cover hooker if Verrills happens to go down, and having that buy in round 5 is a little bit of an issue. Brandon Smith there, the 478.2k, averaging 45 last year. Obviously, it wasn't very nice at all. The buy in round 4 is a slight issue for him, for sure, and his last year's PPM was obviously really down, but in a different role, and he'd already signed with the Roosters, and yeah, there's a few things to say about players that sign early and their role going forward in that team. So it didn't seem to be anywhere near his best. So definitely some upside on that. I think you can expect anywhere between 55 and 68, which are the averages that you've seen him hit in that hooking role, mixing that with a middle role as well. So anywhere above that, that's 10 to 23 points of value, which is really nice. And a lot of people are worried about him moving to the middle at some point, but really there's no hooker backup with Watson going down. So I expect him to just stay in that role and him mold himself back into that 9 role where he's been absolutely dominant. And for someone with such attacking upside in Supercoach, is going to be great for your team. So at 478k, it seems pretty silly to not put him in your side. There's obviously a bunch of good players in these groupings, and a couple of them has dual positions. So look to guys like Tanner Boyd that you could potentially use in other position, in that halfback position as well. But yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting position, that halfback, with such good players and such high averages. Do you go for 2 guns, or do you slot one of these mid-rangers in? So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not a really difficult position because there aren't many options, but just the way you pair them is going to be slightly difficult come round 1. So we move to Tanner now. The 36.6 average last year included a lot of different positions. He has a buy in round 5, which is a negative. His price is really low at 384.6, but you're looking at the pros of him averaging 60 in that last 5 games when he did get that halfback position, when he was kicking goals, when he was kicking in general play. There's definitely plenty of potential. I think even a 50 average is going to be gold for him. He gets 13 to 14 points of value if he hits that 50. Obviously, they were very high scoring games in that last few. He didn't really have an amazing amount of attacking stats, a couple of try assists, and just mainly the goals was the big one for him. You know, is he finally being given the keys? That's the question mark. He's got, you're going to have David Fafita on his right, who could potentially help him get some try assists as well, obviously, and be a body that could be obviously difficult to stop, but very similar to how Kickout is used in Panthers as a decoy sometimes, just a big presence, and Tanner could score well from that. But he has a very unsafe role. We've seen the amount of halves they've gone through in the last few years with Foggs and Toby Sexton. And there's every chance that Brimo could be moved into 6, Jaden Campbell into 1, if this is the exact way that things are going to go, if Tanner is actually getting that 7 position, and he could be moved around very quickly. So just be aware of that, guys, that at least you're probably going to get the first 4 rounds out of him. You'd imagine a couple of price bumps in there, and hopefully he does keep his position. So really, that's the positions. That's the position we've got there. We've got the cheapies, as I said, nobody's there. And the suggestion I'd be going with is just you either go with the 2 gun hookers, because it's a tough position with only the 1 player. You want to have 1 playing and scoring really high at any point. There's obviously a buy early on in the season this year. So having at least 1 really good player is going to be ideal. Or having the 1 gun and 1 value, I think that'll work well for this season in this position, because you want to try to match the buys up. So if you got a guy having a buy in round 9 like Harry Grant, you don't want to have one of your other players having a buy at a similar time. You also don't want your two hookers to have multiple buys in that middle period, which is what you'd see here with Robson, Reed, Cook. They're going to have multiple buys in that middle period there with in and around Origin. So potentially pairing up one of these value guys that have a buy in round 4 or 5 with one of these guns that have buys later in the season could be the way to go. But that is the hooker position, guys. Let me know your thoughts on that. Obviously, my first positional SC video, and I hope you liked it.